I'm Christy Bilbrey. Right after college, I started my career in a Senate press office and then the White House. For the next 7 years, I worked in corporate marketing before starting my own business. As soon as I did, the one thing I realized that none of those experiences taught me was how to market myself. Promoting yourself can mess with your head. Discovering brand storytelling and learning how to put it to work in my messaging saved my business. Once I learned this, I started teaching other business owners how to put it to work in their business as well. I created the Business That Story Built podcast to help strengthen the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we tell others. Audiences crave the human side of businesses. They want to get to know you, follow you, and interact with you outside of the buying experience. This can be intimidating to say the least. If you're ready to take your mindset and your messaging to the next level, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, thank you so much for joining. We are back in the PR series, and we have a little different guest today. She's actually not from the PR industry. So let me tell you a little bit about her. We have Angela de Cespedes, who is a litigation partner based out of the Miami office of Saul Ewing, a full service firm with 500 lawyers and 18 offices nationally. She is admitted, in Florida and New York with 20 plus years of multi-state and international experience in commercial litigation, arbitration, complex tort, and related corporate IP, real estate transactions, and negotiations. She's a leader of her firm's litigation, sports and entertainment, eSports, and video gaming practice groups. And her practice includes representing clients from professional sports leagues to federations, teams, stadiums and arenas, video game companies, and their related ventures, applications and developers, entertainment industry clients, fintech, private equity, private membership clubs, social media and software companies, and apparel industry clients. She is the vice chair of the ABA's Sports and Entertainment section, prominent speaker, and noted author. And now we're getting into why she's here today on this show. She's often interviewed and regularly quoted by CNBC, Wall Street Journal, Daily Business Review, Bloomberg, LA Times, Law 360, and Capitalist, among others. Also, she co-created and co-hosts a YouTube series on the subject of eSports, video gaming, digital assets, and tech called Lawyers with Game, which just wrapped its third season. She is also very involved with utilizing social media, especially LinkedIn, to build community, establish new relationships that turn into clients and friendships and more. And we're going to get into all of that today. So thank you so much, Angela, for joining.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Christy. And as a matter of fact, we met because of LinkedIn. So
Exactly. There's a lot of good things that can happen there. So before we get into all the PR details, can you just share a little bit about what you're really passionate about in life and kind of how that spilled over into areas that you focus on with work, and then just, other passions that you have in life as well?
Yeah. I got into being a lawyer because I'm a big fan of fighting injustice. And I've been doing this for over 20 years. So I'm very passionate about that. I find that more and more in the U.S., people are utilizing litigation not so much as a shield, but as a sword, and oftentimes improperly. So there's nothing that gets me more excited about representing my clients when I can not only help them solve a problem, but also fight an injustice that's occurring in their universe. And this spills over. I have children, a daughter who's 13, a son who's 10. I live with my boyfriend. We have 4 children all together. In addition to the children I mentioned, we have 2 teenage boys as well. So it's a lot of kids running around at that critical stage in their life where I think bullying and injustice comes into play a lot. So I'm very, very passionate about that. And I'm also passionate about, in addition to those things, lifting up not only other women, but lawyers generally. We have a tough job.
Yeah.
No one ever warned us it was going to be this hard, and the more we can band together and lift each other up, I think the better off we are. It's a subject which I'm extremely passionate about. I have several women, especially like yourself, that I've met through contacts on social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, things of that nature. And we support each other. We clap for each other. We're proud of each other. We help each other. And really, that's I think fundamental, and one of the benefits. I know a lot of people have some negative things to say about social media, but one of the great benefits of social media is your ability to do that, support others, and have them support you. I think women in particular, and I'm going to overgeneralize here. So hopefully nobody gets offended by what I'm about to say, but it's a conversation I have often with my 13-year-old daughter. Women and men generally, I think, ignore biological factors, things that have been ingrained in our heads, for a long time. And social media, in some respects, is a great equalizer of those issues. When you look at how long we've been on this planet, for example, in our current form, depending on who you ask, it's probably about 200,000 years, but really it's only been the last 100 years or so that we've been in this current modern state. And I think people tend to ignore all the history. And I'm a history major. I'm a huge fan of looking at history and hopefully not letting it repeat itself in some cases. And when you look at the dynamic between women and men, I think it's an important thing that people need to pay attention to. Historically speaking, women were responsible for the home. They were the primary in the home, in charge of maintaining that, the children, preparing food, and men were hunters and gatherers, really, for the most part, with rare exception. And I understand this. And so when you look at networking in that context, and business relationships and business development in that context, it's extremely important for all of us, especially women, to be self-aware of where we came from and where we're going. And there's nothing that makes me more angry than when women are being catty with one another, viewing each other as competition as opposed to holding each other up. And I think a lot of that stems from our history. The introduction of a new woman, someone who's younger, prettier, smarter, into the home environment. For all of that existence was a threat that you had to immediately put down, or your position was in jeopardy. Men, on the other hand, I think innately, more so than women, understand the importance of banding together with other strong men, younger, bigger, stronger, smarter, whatever the case may be, because it allowed them to go out and gather more and bring it back. It allowed them to hunt as a group for a bigger animal. And I think all of that translates really into corporate America in so many different facets. My 13-year-old daughter is constantly amazed when we've got some drama going on, or we've got some issues with relationships that revolve around what I just mentioned. And I unfortunately can't tell her that it ever ends, but it's a good lesson, I think, for her to learn, and for women to learn generally, that we shouldn't view each other as competition. We're well past that. And we have to hold each other up and support each other, and work together to achieve our goals.
I love that. I love that. And so that may go nicely into our next question, talking a little bit about visibility. So visibility and prioritizing that in your legal career is not something brand new. It sounds like this has just kind of been the way that you have operated. Was there something early on that made you decide to prioritize that? And what did that look like?
It's funny. I think you and I were talking before we started filming that, being an attorney, especially being an attorney at a large firm, isn't as easy for anyone, men, women, it doesn't matter what you are. It's a hard job. And a lot of what we do relies on our ability to get clients, to hire us,
Yes.
to represent them. And different attorneys go about it differently. Transactional folks go about it in one way, I find, and litigators like myself go about it in a very different way. So early on in my career, and I've been doing this for over 20 years now, early on in my career, I had the good fortune of being at a firm that hired a business development coach. She's fantastic. Her name is Deb Nupp. And she came in and trained a bunch of us, and sat with us over the course of a year, and really made us become self-aware of who we are, what we're capable of. I think, like most people who are professionals, I find I'm a little bit of an introverted extrovert. I can work a room like it's nobody's business. I love speaking to a crowd, but it's exhausting and it's extremely time consuming. And she really helped me see that something that I could do to have more of a life balance, and actually, be able to enjoy time, out of work, and not constantly be, have work on the mind, is do, partake in activities where people were coming to me, where I could get the biggest, bang for my buck. So social media fit that platform perfectly. And I've always been a massive nerd, when it comes to technology. Hung out a lot with, the computer lab guys in college. And I've always been fascinated by the concept of social media, the algorithms that they utilize, for placement and things of that nature. So she made me see that I could really leverage my knowledge of that tech space, and really use it for marketing purposes. At the time that this happened, I was a senior associate. I'd been practicing for about 6 or 7 years, and I was spending a lot of my free time attending meetings, on boards for various charities, part of a lot of lawyer groups with a bunch of other lawyers. And there's nothing wrong with that. But really, it's a question of sitting down and really focusing on what's the best return on my investment. Where should I be spending the majority of my time? And really taking a hard look at the things that you are involved with, and not just being involved because they look good on paper, being involved because it was going to help you develop business. It was going to help you form relationships, network, and develop, client relationships, and further those relationships along. So that's really, where I started to see the value, and really, dig in deep to social media and networking in that way.
Okay. So would you say social media, I guess, what would you say in the span of your career have been the visibility raising activities that you have focused on the most? Sounds like social media is definitely one of those.
Yeah, absolutely. Social media is one of those. And in particular, and I'll give you an example, and I'm going to put on my glasses here because
Sure.
I'm turning 49 next month, and I'm kind of useless without them at this point in my life. I took some notes when I was thinking about this, and LinkedIn for me, I think, has been the most tremendous platform in this regard. And it fits with my plan for engagement. I think Instagram's also another great platform and appeals to a younger generation as well that doesn't, I think, yet understand the value of LinkedIn. But utilizing LinkedIn properly, and that's, I think, the key fundamental word. Utilizing it properly. And just to give you some statistics that tend to really surprise people when they hear them, and then I'll get to my point eventually. LinkedIn's been on the market, for example, for 20 years. Okay? It was launched in 2003. They've got more than 900 million members. They're in 200 countries and regions, and it's available in 26 languages. 4 out of 5 of the 900 million subscribers to LinkedIn have decision-making authority of some kind, at their various, companies. Of those 900 million members on LinkedIn, 200 million reside in the US, and 69%, 70%, depending on what day we're looking at, visit LinkedIn daily. And the average visit lasts about 7 minutes, more or less. Okay, so as a country, the US, which is where we are, they clearly have the most members on LinkedIn. However, the Asia Pacific region also has 227 million members. North America, collectively has 220 million. EMEA, Europe, and the Middle East and Africa, 210 million. Latin America, 109 million members. And there are 3 new members that sign up every second. 68 million company profiles are updated monthly on that site, and 250 million profiles are checked or updated monthly. So it's by far, in my opinion, the best lead generation platform globally, and not even close. I wouldn't even know what to say was next. The leading professional network. So what's my point? My point is that only around 3 million users ever share content on LinkedIn
Hmm.
on a weekly basis. Okay. So, and I stink at math. So I went ahead and did this ahead of time. So I wouldn't get myself in trouble because I'm a litigator and that's just par for the course. But when you think about that, okay, that only 3 million users share content daily on a weekly basis on LinkedIn, it means that only about 1% of LinkedIn's 260 million monthly users post content. That means that overall, only about 0.3% of LinkedIn's total membership posts content. And of those 3 million people who are using it properly, they're getting net 9 billion impressions. I mean, it is unbelievable to me that more
Staggering.
people don't post and more people don't use it to get, their name out, brand recognition out, not only for yourself but for your firm or for your business. It's really just unbelievable to me. So to answer your question, I've really focused on LinkedIn, and it's a very easy, once you have a post together, to go ahead and share it as well on Instagram, Facebook, wherever your target demographic, your target clients are, and not only clients and potential target demographic, but the people who your friends who kind of probably have a hard time describing what you do. So it makes it easier on them to refer work to you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it sounds like that came pretty naturally to you. Have you found that there are aspects of PR and growing your own brand that maybe were a little bit of a struggle that you had to overcome? And if so, what did that look like? I know this is an area that a lot of people can easily kind of clam up. And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I say this all the time, and my 13-year-old daughter, who's watches a lot of what I do. When I tell people that I'm shy, they're like, "No, you're not." But it's not a question of necessarily being shy. It's just, I think I go back and forth between, needing some recovery time from the extroverted, type activities that I'm engaged in as a litigator, on a
Mhm.
constant daily basis. So for me, one of the things I've struggled with was, after a full day of work, the last thing you want to do is go out and go to networking activities,
Right.
or, I don't know. Some people play golf for networking, some people play tennis, some people, paddleball, or whatever the case may be. But, there are a limited amount of hours in the day, and how can I best utilize that? And I just find it's a great source of interaction. I mean, I have friends, and some people can make fun of that terminology, but I think that's true. I have friends that I've made just from being on social media, just from being on LinkedIn. And when I say friends, a lot of times what I'm talking about is other women who are amazing, and men as well, who I admire, who I follow, who I emulate, who I have as mentors, or who utilize me as a mentor. And that is from supporting them and liking each other's posts and sharing each other's
Hmm.
posts on LinkedIn. Most of those people, that I categorize that way, a lot of them I've never even been in the same room with. But I've
Yeah.
gotten referrals from them. I've spoken to them on the phone. I've referred things to them. It's pretty amazing. And again, it capitalizes on using your time effectively. And
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I've really had to struggle with initially in my marketing efforts, using my time effectively. If you're sitting on a board, for example, and there's 10 different law firms represented there,
Right.
regardless of whether it's a charitable board or not, there's only so much you're going to be able to do to take a good piece of the good chunk of that business for yourself. So I find that this is a much better vehicle to do that.
Yeah. So it sounds like really it's just kind of a discipline that you've just said, this matters. I know I'm tired. I know it's the end of the day, but this is something that matters. So I'm just going to prioritize it. And have you found anything as helpful so that you're not just exhausted at the end of the day, sitting in front of a blank screen to kind of help you develop posts more quickly, maybe?
Yes, other than the fact that I've been, surviving, for example, the last couple of weeks on sugar-free Red Bull and candy corn. Other than that, it's been one of those months, Christy. Other than that, I would say it is, and you're right, it is a discipline, and I'm lucky, and the firm that I'm at right now, Saul Ewing, one of the big selling points for me when I decided to join that firm almost 4 years ago now was the fact that they understood the importance of marketing for business development purposes. I've worked at big firms, I've worked at smaller firms earlier in my career, and I've got to tell you, and I am not just saying it because they're mine, but I think we have one of the most robust and best marketing departments in the country at our firm. And it's really a collaboration. It's really a collaboration, but it requires discipline on the part of the individual as well.
Yes.
They can't do everything for you. It's a collaboration not only between our own internal marketing and PR department. We also use external PR companies that are local and understand the region and understand the market. Miami is a perfect example. Miami can be an odd place. South Florida can be an odd place. Every single time I read the news and the story starts with, a Florida man or whatever, I'm like, oh God, what did we do now? It's an interesting market, and every market I think has its own personality, things that are relevant, things that are important. So the fact that we use localized, PR firms to assist our marketing department, but at the end of the day, it's really up to me to monopolize on those activities. And I think I probably drive my marketing people a little nuts because I'm a perfectionist. And I think it's important to be that way, quite frankly, because it's who I am. It's who I'm putting out to the world. It's my brand. I'm not only speaking many times on behalf of myself and giving my own personal opinions, but, I represent my firm as well.
Right.
So it's extremely important that it be a collaboration and that you really dedicate time to not only doing it, but doing it correctly. And getting the right, I think, messaging out there is beyond important. Understanding, for example, that while you can put, just as one silly example, understanding, for example, that on Instagram, it doesn't matter how many hashtags you use, it doesn't mess with the algorithm. On LinkedIn, it does matter. You use more than 3 or 4, hashtags, and it's going to flag it, and it's not going to put it in your feed as much as it otherwise would. Knowing these little tidbits, these little factoids, what catches attention, what doesn't catch attention, things like that. You have to take the time, you have to learn it. I think that we're well past the point where people can just ignore these kinds of platforms as a marketing tool and as a business development tool.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think whether someone is working at a firm or just another company where they kind of feel like that's the job of my marketing team, my business development team, and they put it off, just kind of like what tip, maybe tough love advice would you have for them?
But my advice is, if you are lucky enough to be, in my profession, at least one of these lawyers who just sits in an office, isn't on social media, and you have people just randomly calling you up all the time, just handing you work, congratulations. I think that's probably, a rarity nowadays. And it happens in certain specialties, but for the most part, that's not really the way that it works. And you have to take ownership, and you have to take responsibility for your own marketing efforts. If nothing else, to protect the image, that you're putting out there. It's interesting, but I monitor, especially on LinkedIn where you can, how many views my posts are getting, what kind of engagement I'm getting, obviously monitoring the comments, and who's liking it, and what they're saying about it, what they're messaging me, about it. And yes, I post a lot about, strictly work related, things that are going on, or items in the news of legal significance. But I find, interestingly enough, that when I get the most engagement, it's because I've personalized it somehow, and not inappropriately, but I've made it personal to me. I've let people know, who I am as a person, who I am as a lawyer, who we are as a firm. And I find that those posts really go a long way. And the best analogy is, I try cases. I try cases to a jury. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten commentary from juries after the fact, and you can actually pick up on this, as the trial is going on, and the courts as well, by the way, the judges as well. When you're passionate about what you're saying, when you believe in what you're saying, when you're really, when the client is not them and us, and the client is really a we, people pick up on that. so I'll give you an example. I had a post recently where I'm good at a lot of things, Christy, but I'm not, there are certain things that I stink at, and one of them is dealing with cars. Okay, stereotypical, I know, but it is what it is. Okay. And I was very, very busy. I had a million things going on, and I was getting this flashing light, in the dashboard of my car, that my tire pressure was, very, very low, dangerously low. And like, I can do this. I know how to do this. My father recently taught me how to do it again for the fifth time, probably at the ripe old age of almost 49. And I wasted 2 hours going from gas station to gas station, and the problem was just getting worse. And finally, I said, I just need to call for help. So I called my boyfriend. He came, he met me, he filled up, and the reason I posted it, and I try and really maintain a line, Facebook and Instagram is one thing. LinkedIn, I think, should be strictly professional for the most part. But the reason I actually shared that on LinkedIn was, it's important to know what you're good at. It's important to know what you're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
And more than that, and I think especially as a woman, it's important to know when to ask for help when you need it. And it's about delegating, and it's about, the fact that I wasted, 2-3 hours, trying to do something that I shouldn't have. And my time would have been better spent elsewhere. I mean, the value of our time, especially nowadays, with everything we've got going on, not only at work, but outside of work with children and families and things of that nature. It's really a question of maintaining your sanity. But that post in particular, even though it wasn't technically, your classic work-related post, I got so much feedback and so much engagement from that, and it makes people remember who you are. It makes people feel like they know you, and I think that really, really is a tremendous boon for business development, when you can achieve something like that and connect with people.
Yeah, I totally agree. Personalizing, and I think you're absolutely right. You need to kind of know where your boundaries are, because you're also going to, if you post about something, you're also inviting conversation about that by saying, okay,
Oh
this
yeah.
is something I'm comfortable talking about. So if it isn't, that isn't something we want to post. But even within those boundaries, I think you're so right about, you can still personalize why things are important, why they matter to you. And that does, I think that will attract so many more people to that post and to take an interest in you personally. So I love that. I love that. Now, something else that you do that I think is really cool is your YouTube series, which I really do not hear about lawyers doing. So this isn't just something that you co-host, but you co-created. You came up with this idea. So tell me about that. What made you decide we're going to go on YouTube, and what has that been like, and how has that helped?
Yeah, and while I'd love to take credit for coming up with the idea, I can't. One of my partners, Darius Gambino,
Okay.
who's a fantastic IP lawyer, came up with the idea, and I just happened to be in the right place, right time to help him kind of get that launched and off the ground. And we've co-hosted a bunch of the episodes together, and planned them out. We just wrapped up our third season. I
Congratulations.
think, thank you. It's called Lawyers with Game, which I love for a variety of different reasons. That name, I think it's just kind of cool, and lawyers are typically not so cool, so it's kind of nice, to be able to pretend sometimes
Yeah.
in front of the kids. So we were really starting to develop the idea for that YouTube series on lockdown. And
Mm.
it was very difficult, as everyone knows, to kind of interact and reach out and create something that was not only useful, but interesting and timely. And I think it was extremely timely when we did it, and it still is. And it allows us to really, I'm a big fan of looking forward 5 years, looking forward 10 years, what's coming, what around the horizon. There's nothing more enjoyable and fun to me than when I get a call from a client and they say, we've got this particular issue. It's kind of new, it's kind of novel, there's no law, there's no precedent, what do we do? I'm like, well, I don't know, but let's find out. And I'm lucky, because being in that space, in the sports space and the gaming space and the tech space, really allows me, to kind of delve in that Wild West kind of territory where
Yeah.
the law is just constantly evolving and changing, sometimes on a daily basis, and keeping up with that just makes, for an exciting, aspect of what I do for a living. So, it was funny, because at the time we went, for management, and we said, Darius said, we've got this idea. and this is what we want to do, and we want you guys to produce it professionally, and it's all about, you know, video gaming and the metaverse and you know, tech and digital assets. You know, and they kind of looked at us like we were aliens. You know, and they said, we really don't understand necessarily what you're talking about for the most part, but we understand that it's relevant, it's important, it's timely, and sure, why not, let's try it. And I've got to tell you,
Good.
it has been just such an extreme success for so many reasons. We've gotten to interview some of the most, you know, brilliant, you know, guests on that show, in all different spaces, whether it be sports, you know, video gaming, tech, you know, on the digital asset front, and the crypto front. And it gives you exposure to people you would have normally never otherwise had exposure to, because you get to meet them, you get to talk to them, you get to prepare for the, you know, the interview with them, and learn about them, learn about their history. It gives them a platform as well, which is, you know, mutually beneficial. And it allows you to establish relationships. Not only that, but it's a tremendous networking and business development tool.
Yes.
You know, I like to give people the example, Roblox, you know, the CEO of Roblox Asia, is a client of mine, and we had the opportunity to interview him on one of our episodes. And most people's children play Roblox. They have no idea what it no idea what it is. You know, they pay for all of these things. They don't know. Their children are on it constantly. They have no idea what they're doing on there. They think it's just one video game. It's not. It's a whole platform where you can create and you know, tens of millions of games on there that people have developed themselves, and play, and there's marketing aspects, there's IP licensing issues, you know, music, sports, it's all interrelated. You know, advertising, it really is, you know, I think the epitome of what they talk about when they say metaverse. And, you know, a long time, you know, friend of mine who happened to see the episode had the same intuition, which is, legally, I'm not so interested in what she's talking about, but my kids play this and waste all my money on it all the time. So I kind of want to learn what it is, and watched it. And, you know, a couple of weeks later, they're sitting in a conference room making a decision as to who to hire to defend them in a litigation. And, you know, there I am, you know, in consideration, because I had been top of mind, you know, at the time, because he had just viewed, you know, this Lawyers with Game episode out of curiosity. So that's one example of many. It's also really opened the eyes of, we have, you know, 500 lawyers more or less at our firm. Not all of them understand what the others do. And it's given us a platform to really share, you know, what we know, what we do, what we'd like to do with the other lawyers themselves, and participate in cross-selling opportunities. One of the last episodes that I released, Darius and I interviewed a gentleman who was instrumental in the Donkey Kong game. You know,
Wow.
everyone played as children, and the reason that, you know, we came to him is it turned out he was already a client of our firm, not for anything having to do with tech or video games. And one of the, you know, partners at our firm was like, you know, I know you guys are into that whole video gaming thing. You know, one of my clients happens to be the guy, and you know, my face
Yes.
drops, and I'm like, I'm sorry, what?
I
You
know. That's crazy.
And it's just a tremendous opportunity for so many different reasons, and I love it, and it's so much fun, and we've been able to involve a bunch of the lawyers at our firm in it, and their clients, and we're always kind of planning ahead for the next season. Like I said, we just wrapped season 3, and it's been just so much fun and so beneficial, and it's really, for marketing purposes and business development purposes, been just a boon.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And I don't hear about other lawyers doing that. And I just think that's so smart. Cause that's another one of those platforms. I don't have the statistics in front of me, but kind of like what you read about LinkedIn. I mean, everybody is on there. It's such a great way to connect. They can see you, hear you, get to know you. Like, it's awesome. It's awesome that you're doing that. And in that vein, as you said, you kind of like to look ahead 5 to 10 years. What do you see on the horizon with on the PR front, on the visibility side that you're paying attention to that you think other people should be focusing on as well?
Oh, I think you hit the nail on the head with respect to the podcast and the YouTube series. I think people expect to see more of that. It's not, you know, I think we're going to see more of the same.
Mhm.
You know, it's staggering to me, and I don't remember the exact statistics of the age demographic that's on LinkedIn, for example. It's mostly, it tends to be, you know, younger, under 50. But I think there needs to be more engagement from people who I think were using the excuse of, I don't like social media.
Right.
I don't want to use it. I don't want to learn it. I have no interest in it. I don't need it. Why do I need it? I think everyone does. And I think it's a great resource. I think we're going to see more of the same. I think things have changed dramatically. And I think, several years ago, when you wanted to learn about someone, you went to their website, their company's website, you looked up their bio. And I'm not saying it's not important to have a fantastic website. We have a great website. It's interactive. We just finished actually, investing and redoing that. But I think more often than not, people will do a Google search.
Mhm.
They'll go to LinkedIn as their first stop to check you out. And that initial impression is incredibly important, because I've got to tell
Yes.
you, if they're not initially impressed with your LinkedIn profile, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, if you're not on, one of the other major social media sites, for example, like Instagram, people are going to wonder why. And nowadays it's an odd thing not to be on there. And I'm sorry, that's just the case. And especially when you're talking about young entrepreneurs, young businesses, the average age of US CEOs is just younger and younger and younger, and spans demographics. I think they expect to see that. It's your first impression to the world. I always Google myself every once in a while just to see what's out there.
Yeah.
Make sure that, it's the kind of content that I want, my potential clients and my current clients to see, and media and whatever the case may be when people are
Mhm.
looking me up. And I think people really need to dig in and use it for the benefit that it is. And yes, there of course are negative aspects to it, but for the most part, I think if you handle it correctly and you learn about it, which is fairly easy to do, with various YouTube videos and the like, I think it's a tremendous tool, and I think it's just going to become more so and all less so.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you included media in that. I mean, definitely prospects are going to Google first and see what comes up, as well as media. And so much of that is, you get to help control a lot of that with social media or YouTube, podcasting. And because even media will see, okay, they're saying this person is an expert. When I Google them, are they quoted in other places? Are they speaking in other places? Are they actually an expert, or is this just something their marketing person says? So I think it shows a lot of credibility when you are taking the time to get those out there, that those are some of the intangible things that they may not tell you. Oh, yeah, I saw 25 links about how you speak about this, or you've posted about this, but that does go into whether or not you get the responses and get the calls. So I'm glad you
Yeah,
included that.
and unlike, the company websites, it actually allows them to see you in action, to the extent that
Right.
that's available, which is priceless. It's priceless.
And so, in that vein, is there anything else that you feel like we haven't covered, maybe that you would want to leave listeners with on this?
Well, people ask me a lot, what are your tips? What are your tips for posting, on social media, specifically because I'm a huge fan of it, LinkedIn. And the first thing I always say, and I love mentoring, especially, young people who are looking to go to law school, people who are in law school. And one of my biggest things that I do before I talk to them is I go on and I check if they have a LinkedIn profile and what it looks like. And when I say to them it's the modern equivalent of a Rolodex, they look at me like, deer caught in headlights. They don't even know what a Rolodex is.
Right.
But hopefully some of the people watching this will understand what I mean when I say that. And when I see their profiles, I help them walk through and explain to them the importance of getting them to the point where it looks professional. So one of my biggest tips is always, please use a professional picture.
Yes.
It's your first impression. When you post, I think most people don't realize this. A lot of people will just post with text, or with, some kind of, image that only includes text. If you actually post with images, and pictures, your posts get a 98% higher, comment rate compared to only text only posts. So use pictures, use something descriptive that catches people's attention. Pay attention to the first couple words that you use in your post and make it eye-catching and make it something that people are going to want to read more about, because when your posts are in your feed, really what you only see is the picture, or whatever image you've used, and the first, about 10 words or so, depending on, that's all they see. And you have to engage them so they want to click and read more. And most people don't pay attention to that a lot. I think we already covered this, but one of the other things I see, which drives me insane, is that they don't keep it professional. Posting online, know where you are. Okay. And LinkedIn in particular is really a professional network. So, don't post things that are inappropriate or not in any way, business related. It's not the place. It annoys people, I find. It annoys me. Interactions should also be professional. I don't even want to get into some of the messages I've received sometimes on there. To that same vein, by the way, don't be afraid to unfollow people and block them when you need to. You should monitor the kinds of comments people are posting to your posts, the kind of interactions you're getting, because that's your persona. That's your brand. It's who you are. And if there's people who don't respect that and are going to post negative things or comment negatively or comment in a way that some of your clients might hate, you need to be aware of that and be on top of that. But one of the most missed opportunity I see, especially on LinkedIn, is there's your picture, there's your name, and then there's your title. Okay, so when someone Googles you or when someone searches for you on LinkedIn, that's the first thing they're going to see. And most people that I see, at least in my profession, and I've seen it done in other professions as well, it's the picture, the name, and then lawyer. Picture, name, partner at a law firm, picture, name, CEO. Well, go in and edit that, because LinkedIn actually allows you to write something there. And you can fit up to 220 characters. And I've got to tell you, I take an enormous amount of time and detail on my LinkedIn profile to make sure that I can fit as much content into those 220 characters as possible. And it's important. And if people, again, if there's something boring there, something that really has, no weight, no meaning, why are they going to want to look at more? So use that as an opportunity to market yourself and make sure that you pack as much information into that 220 character description, as humanly possible. Reporters have told me that one of the reasons they reached out to me, for example, for an interview on a particular subject matter, is because when they did a Google search or they searched on LinkedIn, they searched for keywords, and those keywords came up in my 220 character title, under my name, not just lawyer, not just litigator, not just partner, not just, whatever C-level executive you happen to be. Make it as descriptive as possible and alluring as possible. So, it's again, the perfect place to incorporate keywords. And I think it's a big missed opportunity that a lot of people don't take advantage of.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, because it is searchable. Those are searchable. And so knowing what are the keywords I want people to associate with me and my brand, and making sure you include that when you can in that first thing that they see. And then if they like that and they click on your about section, it's in there too.
And it's something you have to really think about, because it's something I really think about, because people say, what do you do? And I, depending on who it is and how tired I am, I might not a great response, but at the end of the day, think about who you are and what you do. And for me, for example, yes, I'm a litigator. Yes, I'm a partner at a large law firm. But what I am really is someone who finds solutions to problems. I'm a solutionist. People call me, they have a problem, and I try and help them solve that problem so they can get back to doing what they really want to do, which is running their business. And it doesn't always entail, and shouldn't always entail, litigation. That should, in my opinion, always be somewhat of a last resort, unless you're using it for strategic reasons, which, depending on whether you're my client or not, I may or may not like that. But but it's extremely important, and really give some time to thinking about, what words you place there, because that's how you're holding yourself out to the world.
Yes, love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for coming on today and sharing your pearls of wisdom. And I hope everyone listening, we will definitely have your LinkedIn profile so they can connect with you. Were there any other links that you wanted to have us include in the show notes, or is that kind of the main way that you want people to connect with you?
Yeah, I love when people connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to provide that link. And all of my other information is there. So everything about me can pretty much be found. Everything I want people to know can be found, be found on LinkedIn.
Great. Well, thank you so much again. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Christy.
Absolutely. To succeed in business, you need brand awareness, authority, and trust. To get those, you need visibility. Podcasts offer each of these. It's a unicorn platform because it gives you the scarcest resource in digital marketing: attention. Did you know that 80% of podcast audiences listen to the entire episode, and more than 50% consider buying from a brand or individual that they discover on a podcast? Building your own show and audience takes years. Grow faster by guest speaking on other podcasts to get more leads, build your SEO, and strengthen your brand. To learn how my agency can help, email me at hello@christybilbrey.com.